I stared at the reflection in the mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back. Her eyes were tired, and there was a dullness to her once bright smile. I thought of him, my husband. His name lingered on my lips like a foreign word. Was it still the name I loved, or had it become just another word I said out of habit? I married James 8 years ago. He was kind, dependable, and gentle, everything a person could wish for in a partner. But somewhere along the way, I lost something. The affection, the excitement, the spark that once existed between us seemed to vanish, leaving a hollow shell of a marriage. I used to think I was being ungrateful. How could I not love a man like James? He provided for me. He was loyal. He never raised his voice, never had an angry word to say. He was perfect, and yet, I found myself drifting further and further away. It wasn't that he did anything wrong. There were no dramatic fights, no betrayals, no sudden change. He simply became more of a presence in my life than a partner. We lived together, shared meals, and went about our days. But our connection seemed to fade with each passing year. I tried to ignore the gnawing feeling inside of me. It felt like a betrayal to admit that I didn't love him anymore. So, I stayed quiet, played the part of the dutiful wife. I smiled when he came home from work, asked about his day, and made dinner. I was always the supportive one. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. One night, after yet another dull evening of watching television in silence, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. I had been thinking about it for a while now. The truth that I had been too afraid to face. I don't love him anymore, I whispered to the empty room, the words floating in the air like a confession. The truth was both a relief and a burden. How had it come to this? How had I let something so precious slip away? I thought about the man I had once been, someone full of dreams and excitement, someone who believed in love. What happened to that person? I wanted to reach for her again, to feel the joy and passion that once filled me. But now, I felt like a stranger to myself. It wasn't as though I wanted to leave James. He was a good man, and I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't want to break up our family, or the life we had built together. But the longer I stayed, the more I realized that this emptiness inside of me was growing. I couldn't ignore it forever. It wasn't about another person. It wasn't about infidelity. It was simply that the love I once had faded into something unrecognizable. I had tried to rekindle it, tried to force myself to feel something that wasn't there, but it never came back. The next morning, James kissed me goodbye as he left for work, and I stood there, feeling nothing. I wasn't angry, sad, or even relieved. I was numb. And that was the worst part, the numbness that had taken over every part of me. I sat down at the kitchen table, holding my cup of coffee, thinking about the future. What would it look like? Could I learn to love him again? Or was this the end of something that had no real beginning? I didn't know the answer, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep living a life that didn't feel real. I didn't love my husband anymore. And for the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to accept it.